And we're back with the Costello Coaching Podcast. I'm here with Andrew Rohrbach.
Hey, everyone.
I like when you do the, hey, everyone, it's Andrew Rohrbach.
Do I do that sometimes?
Yeah, you
hey,
did it in the last one.
Andrew Rohrbach here.
Yeah, exactly. No, and today is a great topic, life after baseball. And what brings me to this is actually a piggyback off of last week when we were talking about the cure to burnout. And we learned through the research and study that actually, and you enlightened me on this, when people have a plan B, it's actually best for their current career. So when guys are baseball players and you ask them, hey, what would you like to do after baseball? Oh, I don't think about that. I just have a plan A. That's not technically the healthiest mindset. So if you want to expand on that to kind of refresh the people from last week, and then we can get into what spurred my thoughts behind this.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just piggybacking on that, it's plan A, plan B, whatever it is. Some people call it something different. But the research basically states that when you're all in on one thing, that thing becomes more of your identity. And when one thing is your identity and it doesn't work out, or you have tough times with it, you go with the ups and downs of what that thing is, because you don't have something else to prove that your identity is not wrapped around in one specific thing. So, for example, using what we talked about last week, I was a baseball player. I played with the Rockies, but I also did work outside of that in different areas that was more creative for me. And that helped me in times where I felt like baseball wasn't going in the direction I wanted it to, or I had a bad outing. I'd remind myself that I'm not just a baseball player, and I'm also this and this. I'm a son and a brother and blah, blah, blah. So it kind of helps you not necessarily compartmentalize the tough moments, but helps you realize that you're not just one thing. And that normally helps people perform a little bit better because you're not living and dying by your performances.
Yeah. And when I learn from really what you teach me when we're having these conversations, and I've said it a million times before that I love doing this because it forces us to have in-depth conversations on pretty dense topics. And this is a dense topic. Like, all ball players go through that experience. But where it came to light for me was we talked about it on the front end of the week, and then on the back end of the week, I actually had the entire University of San Diego baseball team in here. And it's interesting because what we talked about in our conversation prepared me for them coming in without me even realizing it. And so I could just really look into these kids' eyes and kind of see where they're at because I've been there before. And what I mean by that is the coach had texted me in the middle of the week and said, hey, could we bring the guys in and get a little Costello energy in them? I was like, yeah, sweet. So the whole team rolled off, all 35 players. I took them through 25 minutes of breath work. And during that exploration, I could just see their bodies soften in the room. You could just feel it. You know, there's an oxytocin release with all this breathing, and it's actually what I'm certified to do, performance training, breath work. And then I took them through a visualization. And I took them through the visualization, and I let that do the work. One of the key moments of the visualization was take yourself to the happiest moment you've ever had as a baseball player. And they went there, and I gave them time, and I gave them language around getting there. And I'm pretty sure most of them got there and got a vision from that. And then the whole intention was, okay, now see yourself out in Malibu with the ocean in the background. You're playing baseball against Pepperdine, and you're creating that happy experience now. You can feel it in your body. Your body knows what it feels like. Now do your best to go create that reality. And if you felt it, then you have an opportunity to create it. Very hard to not feel something and then go create it, right? And so they did that, and I didn't give them any coaching. I didn't want to teach them anything. I just let them do the visualization and let the visualization do the work. They went through an entire workout. And the way that they were looking at me at the end of the workout versus when they all arrived was completely different. They had a different look. Like they were looking for something from me, like whether it was some knowledge or some insight. And I wasn't going to give them a rah-rah speech or anything like that. I gave them 2 minutes of authenticity where it was just like, hey guys, I said something like, I've been in your shoes before where there's a lot of uncertainty. Like there's a lot of uncertainty with how your season's going to go. There's a lot of uncertainty with what's after baseball. There's uncertainty if you're going to play this year, if you're performing to your expectations, your coach's expectations. And I told him, I said, no matter what's after this, that's okay. You just do your best to recreate those happy moments in this season and just control that for now. And if it's enjoying a workout and an experience in here, and that's part of your season, that's part of it. If it's playing in an actual game, go do your best to do that. If it's a team meal after, it's a team meal. And really just anchor them into that moment, because the rest of the stuff is going to figure itself out. But it stemmed some questions from the coach after, which was cool, which was, hey, love what you said to the boys. It would be great if you could kind of expand on some of those things and talk about maybe life after baseball or, things like that to help them understand, what they can create in their college experience. So with you, like, I know that you went through a lot figuring out what was after baseball for you. And I think if kids can listen to this, or players that are active can listen to this, it can maybe offer them some insights on how to approach that next step, or even think about that next step, which could offer them some clarity and freedom within their career in the current moment.
So do you want me to talk about anything specific about my transition out of baseball? Is there something that comes to mind for you that makes most sense?
Well, I think what's interesting for you is that I don't want to say you struggled. Maybe you did, but you struggled with a little bit of mental.
Yeah, I struggled.
You struggled with mental part of the game, and that guided you towards sports psychology and mental performance. And you went and furthered your education in it. And now you're not working in sport full time. You're working with a different population, but how your experience in sport kind of guided you to that next step in your career. And maybe you never envisioned doing exactly what you're doing, but you probably had a vision of helping people perform with more mental clarity.
Yeah. Okay, that gives me more clarity of where I can go with this. For me, this kind of transitions from specifically what we talked about last week of the plan A, plan B, how much of your identity is within sport. For me, I was one of those players that I felt, if you were to ask me how much of my identity, like my self-identity, just Andrew, is a professional baseball player, my answer probably would have been, 50-50. I definitely have a life outside of sport. But I don't know if I gave it the justification it actually deserved, which was probably 99% of me was a professional baseball player, 1% of me was anything else. I wanted it like more than life itself. Sorry, as I talk that out, I get emotional. I wanted it more than anything. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. And I never really put enough vision into what I wanted outside of that, because so much of me was, that's going to happen. I was hardworking. My effort was there. I was talented in certain areas. And if I wasn't talented in certain areas, I was going to figure out how to beat somebody. I was just I'm ultra competitive when it comes to athletics. And so much of what I love about life was in baseball. That was an arena for me to experience all that competition and all that pushing myself and determination and effort and creativity within slowing the game down as a pitcher. There was just so many different things about who Andrew is that baseball was the perfect arena for that. Now I'm answering this question as of today in 2026. I stopped playing in 2018. I would have never been able to answer this question like that in 2018. Because I didn't realize that. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, is so much of what they've done in their life is be a baseball player and what that gives to them. But they don't put enough value on what baseball is teaching them about themselves, other than they can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, hit 30 home runs a game. There's so much that baseball's teaching you about how you deal with adversity and how you come together as a teammate, and what type of teammate are you, and what type of leader are you, and what those skills are that you're actually acquiring in the process. And those are the skills that can be transferable to wherever. This is why a lot of employers like hiring former athletes. you understand what's feels like to be a part of a team. And you just don't get there until you go through that process. And for me, I want to give the viewers something to think about. This process of me getting to where I'm talking today took 8 years, if my math's correct. I don't do math in public, but when I do, it's always correct. 8 years, right?
It was really good math.
It's good math. And so where I'm trying to go with this is that the process of transitioning out of sport and figuring out who you are as a person takes time. But what you can do right now is start to ask yourself, what am I learning from the sport that I'm currently playing about myself? What are these skills that I'm really developing as a baseball player, softball player, soccer player, whatever it ends up being? And what other arena can I put those into? And that's the fun part that people don't talk about, because it doesn't seem fun when all you want to do is the other arena that you just got out of, but you get to choose the other arena that you get to do these things in. And when you empower people to go, what other arena do you want to be the best version of yourself, or the best version you think you have that sport taught you? Where do you want to put that? That's a question that takes time to get to. But that kind of goes back to the plan A, plan B is right now, see other areas of your life that you're curious about. Most of them are in school. What areas of school are you interested in? Where's the world going? Do you like social media? Do you like this? Ask yourself what you're curious about, so you can give yourself an opportunity of listening to your body tell you what direction you want to go, and then connect it back to I've already developed a lot of these skills and I can do it. I just have to give myself time to go through the transition process of not being the athlete anymore, but instead taking the skills and putting them into another arena.
So good. One of the coolest things you do for me as my friend is you'll offer me journaling prompts. And I love the questions that you ask for a journal. You go through the exercise of writing it down and working through it, and it provides so much clarity. And so as I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking of a journaling prompt for a high school player that it might be over soon, or a college player might be over soon, or a minor leaguer that just got released after spring training, or whatever, whoever the person is in the transition they're going through. Heck, it could be anyone going through a transition and a shift in an identity. And, what skills have I acquired in this craft that I've put my entire life into over the past X amount of years, and where can those skills show up in other parts of my life? I think that's a great question to ask yourself. If you're to write that thing down and do your best to answer that, you'd end up looking at the piece of paper and looking at the words that you wrote down and realizing how much value you offer to the world. And I think that's, when we talk about identity, I think that's the biggest hurdle that athletes have to overcome, is because they feel like their only value that they've provided to the world or to a marketplace to this point is their athletic ability. And the truth is, you are more than a baseball player. You are more than whatever you do. But it's really hard for people to conceptualize that, because they say, I know that in my heart, but I don't know how that shows up in the world. And you have to do some thinking. You have to do some deep thinking about what that is. Now, on the reverse end, if you're a player in the middle of your career, it can offer a lot of freedom and a lot of space too, because it shows you that baseball is part of what you do, or the sport that you play is part of what you do. You offer so much more value than just the craft of the game. And that's really important for people to hear and understand, because it can offer them space. It can offer them freedom. And when you have space and freedom, when you're playing, you play more free, and when you play more free, you play better. So it's deep thinking. It's, really high level stuff, but I think it's simple also.
Yeah. And I want to add on top of that, because as you were talking, it reminded me of why I struggled so much to get to that point of just even exploring something else, was because I was so busy just being mad at myself for not making it. I was so mad at myself. There was a couple other things that were happening in my life at the same time, but more importantly, I felt like I failed myself. And I try to instill with anybody that I work with, myself included, I work with myself, but to start training yourself, whether you're 13 years old, 18, or a minor leaguer, after every game or after every incident where you feel like this is really applicable, is to start training your brain to think about the 3 things you did correct, things that you were proud of, things that you did good in your mind, and then one thing that you want to improve upon. Not one thing you did bad, but one thing you want to improve upon. So this is after every outing or at bat. Like, can you start turning your brain into what did I do well there? And then attacking the what do I improve upon? Because so often as athletes, you only go to what did I mess up? And you very rarely ever get to how did I do a good job there? We're always so analytical of what I did wrong. And that was where my brain was oriented. I did a poor job my entire career of being like my own best friend and being like, Andrew, like you're improving, you're going in a direction. Too often athletes rely on coaches and other people to give them that validation. Learning to give it to yourself first can be a really big step in this process. And that took me 4 or 5 years to like understand the concept. I mean, I started to see a therapist after baseball because I was just so messed up. I was like, life just doesn't make any sense. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. And there were so many different moments in therapy that my therapist would be like, hey, look how you're talking to yourself. And I just couldn't connect the dots that I shouldn't be talking to myself like this. Like this is how I was successful in my head. If I just beat myself into the ground, I use it as a motivational technique to push myself forward. But that's not the only way to do it. It just was the way that I learned to do it. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but there's other ways to motivate yourself. And beating yourself into the ground is one that is very common in athletics, especially high performers in general. Is just like, what did I do wrong? How did I improve this? Like, let's go, come on, push yourself, rather than going, hey, okay, like what did I do well here? Great. All right, then what do I want to improve on here? Okay, no problem. It's just a gentler approach that gives you an option to kind of be your own best friend. So you can start training your brain to be like, life's hard, man. Like we were talking about transition out of sport. That's hard, very hard. Like nobody gives it the credit it deserves. A lot of people are really lost. I was one of them for a long time. I'm just now starting to come into like normal Andrew. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that for everybody, but it takes a long time. So giving yourself an option to be your own best friend during the process could be a first step in going to back to your point. It's just like, how can I just like think about the ways I can be my own best friend and improve and think about things in the way that I'm not a failure.
How many high performers, whether you played with them, around them, I mean, you know, a lot of people that have succeeded at a really high level in sport, were the type of people that talk to themselves that way. When I say that way, like were kind to themselves. Do you notice that most high performers speak to themselves in a kind way or a debilitating way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question.
It's like a generalization, but I'm just saying like the people that you're around, like.
Yeah, I don't, that's a good question. I don't think that generally people are very good at this. Like innately, I feel the brain is designed to figure out what's wrong. It's just innate, like biology. It's just, that's what it does. It's not designed to be like, hey, everything's going good. It's what's going wrong. Where do I orient myself around this situation? So to answer your question, I don't think anybody's good at being their best friend and using all of the examples, but I think the highest performers are the ones that learn the different processes that work for them. Whether they're beneficial or not is a question you can ask later based off of the topic that we're having, which is transitioning out of something. But they just understand how to deal with themselves a little bit more. So some of them, like for example, I was a rather high performer at the Division I level, and then pro, I got hurt rather early and wasn't really able to prove a lot of what I thought I could do. But I found for myself to be successful at the Division I level was to quote unquote motherfuck myself constantly on the mound. Like if I threw 2 balls in a row, Andrew, what the F are you doing? You like, well, come on, dude. Like, and I use it as a motivational technique. So for my example, I understood that helped me get out of my conscious mind into my subconscious to be a little bit more actionable and be more aggressive. And that helped me get results. But then outside of life, I did the same thing, and that didn't help me get results. Right. So to answer your question, it's a little tough because I think I just learned how to deal with myself as an athlete. But then when we're talking about dealing with ourselves outside of sport, that's a whole entirely different conversation that not a lot of high performers that I found have a good idea around who they are outside of what they're achieving and what their identity is as a high performer, whether it's athletics or business, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Being a professional athlete, these guys, it takes everything they got to succeed at it. It takes everything that they got, all your mental energy, all your physical energy. It's why they need an off season. Like in no other line of work, do you get 4 months off, and then it's 8 months of go, and then 4 months of reset. And then in those 4 months of reset, they're just preparing basically the entire time for that 8 months of go. And so they just do that over and over and over again. And then it all of a sudden stops. And it's like, all right, transition into what a quote unquote normal life is.
Yeah. There's also,
that's like a huge transition.
Yeah. I wrote my thesis on professional athletes transition out of life, out of sport, and how it kind of relates to life satisfaction was the title of my thesis. But perceived control over your retirement was a huge portion. So how much control did you have over deciding to stop play?
99% of them don't.
I don't even know the percentages.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like,
but regardless, it's significant. Even with my findings and a lot of the psychological research, if you have more control over the choices you're making in your life, you seem to have a little bit more life satisfaction. For me, I was released on a day there's no way I expected to ever be released. I was like, there's no possible way I could be hurt forever. Like, I still provide a lot of value. Was the way I was thinking. The organization thought differently, and that messed me up a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think most guys get blindsided by it. Some get hurt, and they kind of have to decide once they're hurt, do I try to rehab this and go back? Like, how many stories have you heard from guys in their 40s and 50s? They're like, oh, I was a good player, and then I got hurt, and it was all over. And it's like, you're never really done because you got hurt. It's like the injury might, give you a little sigh of relief because you don't have to push as hard. And we've talked about that as before. You gave a great analogy to me when we talked about this one time, that if you're biking for 200 miles and then you just got to stop, you're going to get immediate relief. But if you set the goal to go 250 miles, like, could you take that break and then push another 50 miles and then, earn that satisfaction that you really set out to do and you're so close? Or is it like, no, I've gone 200 miles, that's enough. And I have that relief and that's enough. And I want something new. But either way, you're going to have to close the book on what you've done and move forward, but also make sure that you can reference that book for the skill sets that you've acquired for what's next. I think that's also an interesting thing that we could talk about maybe next time is like, people say close the yearbook. And yeah, maybe you don't have to tell the stories about how great you were, right? No one really wants to hear those, but people do want to hear the stories of, this is what I learned on my experience. My dad always says that the best person to talk to is the guy that just went down the road and came back. Those are the best people, when you just finished playing or you just got out of that transition, like for you, like you finished playing 8 years ago, but these things are very fresh to you still. So you're a great point of reference and a point of contact for someone who is going through that shift in identity. It's not so much shift in career. I think it's shift in identity. And that's the hardest part. So yeah. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this one up. Pretty deep, a lot going on there, but plenty for someone to contemplate that just gave it a listen.